Hi there. Welcome to my latest brain date. And this is with today the ladies of Lucy Black Entertainment. So I'm going to add them in. Let's see. Nope. That's how am I got it now. Let's see. I got them on. Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Enjoying the snow.
I just said, was I that busy? Because I didn't see the snow coming. Did they say it was going to snow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Storm hitting the whole East Coast.
oh, I've been busy. I missed that. I was
We,
like, geez, what else happened in the world? Because the snow, I was like, wait, is that snow? I had plans.
so fun. Yeah, I had to drive to Lawrence. I was like, it'll be fine. I'm used to driving in the snow. And then I was like, this is more than I thought. So
Yeah, I'm looking out my front window like, oh, it's actually snowing out there. Let me go check the forecast. And I think to myself, do children get today off? Maybe not. I mean, they're home. They can still go to school. This is no fun. Snow days in a pandemic. It means nothing.
oh man.
You might as well have sunshine.
Well, hopefully they'll get to go play in it.
No, there's torture. They have to go to school while they're looking at the snow outside. See, I'm a Debbie Downer today, but I'm not seeing the love in snow during a pandemic.
We're so happy about the snow. Yeah.
But I'm happy to see snow. I feel like it's been a long time. We got no snow last year. None, not a drop last winter.
So January 19th. And the only reason I remember it is because it was the one time we were to the Kennedy Center for a show, and it was like it hit really hard, and I was like, "Are we still going?" And then we took fabulous pictures outside the Kennedy Center, and that was like the one snow we had, and that's the only reason I remember it.
Well, it's lovely. It doesn't. I mean, is it going to be hard? Does anybody know? Is it heavy snow?
No, I think it's supposed to turn to rain this afternoon and go away.
Okay,
Ice.
I'm telling you, that's how little I know about the snow for today. But
Yeah,
I did wear a sweater for the occasion. I figured, I'm gonna go sit in front, like a Hallmark movie. I'm gonna pop out the hot chocolate, sit in front of the fireplace, listen to some Mariah Carey sing "All I Want for Christmas" and get in the mood. So no.
Their Christmas album on this morning, so
Yeah. So I am so excited to have you ladies today. I think what a benefit. What I've loved about these brain dates is we hit on those topics. Like, I think everybody is an excellent planner. We have some excellent people out here, but there are little areas that if you haven't done it enough, it can really give you a sense of uncertainty, that you feel a little uncomfortable with what you need to know when it comes to booking a band, making sure you have the right amount of power, what in the world's a writer, how much stage. Because I will tell you, I used to work for hotel corporation planner events, and every event we had, I was booking major talent, and the writers used to crack me up. But then once I got into the meat and potatoes of it, I realized most of the writers weren't as fluffy as everybody thinks they are, and that there is a reason behind the writers. Oh, the hidden names that I knew for talent when I booked their hotel rooms. Like, well, I could tell you where they're staying. I know what name they use. You know, I think the perfect one is what, Philip Bailey. Was he with Earth, Wind and Fire? Is that his last name? Philip Bailey? And the little high pitched guy. The reasons. That's all I got for you. Anyhow, when I had to book a hotel room for him, it had to be a room where he could open the window because of that high pitched voice. He couldn't be in a room with AC before he performed.
Well, actually, like Aretha Franklin would not perform with on at a venue. Like they had to turn the air off.
Yeah.
Space,
Oh.
which is difficult when there's hundreds of people for an event.
Yeah.
And we had sound teams tell us some horror stories about it being like 90 degrees at the building museum with Aretha Franklin and 1,000 people. But I do that.
But I understand it now because their voice is their tool and they need to protect it. So when you take those writers, and for anybody listening that doesn't know what a writer is, this is, do you mind if I share? Because I'm like, you guys are probably like, she invited us on and then she won't shut up. But a writer, this is that document that musicians or a band will send you, that 12 and 12 design says you guys are her faves, by the way. That this is a document that bands or musicians will provide you for the items they would need to make sure that they can carry out their performance. And so you may have heard in some, what I like to call folklore or urban myths, about all these crazy things that they ask for. So I will not mention this band, but I remember sharing that with the story with a band, and they said that the reason they put goofy stuff on there is it lets them know you've read it.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So if somebody asks for a bowl full of green M&Ms, they know you got everything else they really need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, okay. I can see where that is. And obviously they need to make sure that you carry it out. But when you're working on an event for a wedding or an event or, you know, a social event, you want to take it just as serious, because it doesn't matter if it's Earth, Wind and Fire or whomever it is. You want to make sure that the musicians are protected, because as I've said before, outside of food, I tell people this all the time. I got married 24 years ago. People still talk about it because we had a great party. Two things they mentioned: the food, the music. I couldn't tell you what flowers I had. But nobody mentions the flowers. Nobody mentions anything. Food, music. Music is, in my opinion, is the second most important part of the reception. So now I'm going to ask you some questions. So first, before we start, tell folks a little bit about Lucy Black Entertainment.
Yeah. So, well, I'll give you a broad stroke about Lucy Black. So Lauren and I actually met in college. We're both violists. We actually booked entertainment and music in college, kind of freelancing. Like, it turned into a thing, but I didn't know that this was something that was real. Like, people would just call me and be like, hey, I need a string quartet. And I'm like, well, I'm booked, so I'm going to put together another quartet for you. And, you know, I mean, like, it's just kind of what we did. And then I moved up here. She was all over. Ended up in
relocating, yeah.
Yep. And then she was going to move away from Williamsburg and wasn't quite sure what she was going to do. And I was like, just move to DC. It's fine. You'll be fine. And she did. And so we ended up working together, actually running another entertainment company. And it kind of showed us that we just have a really great way of working together, even though we're really good friends. And so we started Lucy Black August 2018. And have three house bands now. Mm-hmm. But we book a lot of just musicians. We just know a bunch of musicians in town, in New York, all over the country, really. A bunch of DJs.
Immersive entertainment. We now have a full production team that we work with that does all of the sound and lighting. So
and video.
Yeah. So, do you have a specific genre of music that you represent?
I would say no, only because every event, it really depends on the event. So we can kind of do whatever the event calls for. Even from like, I was talking to someone one time randomly about, they were doing like a medieval tea party Renaissance vibe. And I'm like, oh, you should get like period music. And they were like, what is that? I'm like, they play on like ancient instruments and they play, you know, modes and things like that. And, you can kind of make it whatever you want because as long as you know the musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And collectively, we each have a lot of music knowledge in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
So where one of us might not know something as well, the other one kind of picks up the slack, if you will.
Anything that's really old, I usually know.
Welcome to my world. So what are some things we should know when booking a band for our reception?
So, what's funny?
Stage size, amps, rider, meal times, anything you want to share.
So one thing that struck me about reading your book, just so everyone on here, just get it and read it. There's so many good things. Like,
Thank you.
I was struck by, you mentioned at one point that so many people favor the design over the logistics and the details. And we have found, even with some of the top planners we've worked with, that we are put in positions where we're compromising and making it work because we have to, but age is too close to the people, or there's not enough room for the actual musicians, but we shove under a staircase. Literally, that has happened. But you do it because you want everything to go well, and you're on site and you can't do anything now.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably for me, it's really hard to say a number one, but I do think number one would be power. Power is something that, like, when you blow power,
Everything's gone.
Everything's gone. Literally nothing else.
Everyone knows that it happens.
Yeah, it is. We've had a few occasions where that's happened. It's been from either people aren't paying attention to how many people are in a circuit. Understanding circuits, something I don't think everyone talks about. You can get a circuit map.
Yeah.
And the band has a dedicated amount of power it asks for. And you just got to make sure your caterers, your lighting, especially lighting, are not plugging into the band's circuit. And everyone's on their own circuit and everyone's good. But
you just figure out the plan beforehand and everybody's fine.
But then on site, we've seen people, pros. And I don't blame anybody. I think it's really just a matter of, you're on site, there's a billion things happening and people aren't paying attention to who plugged in where, and you blow power. You will have nothing happening. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's funny because that's actually outside of making sure that the space is set aside. That's actually one of my biggest concerns is making sure you have power. Because, I'm not up for a night full of us with some tambourines and some bongos, unless that was what we ordered and or booked. And you want to make sure that, and that's something I ask for DJs, lighting, like, all right, tell me everything you need so that because we have made that mistake where somebody would say, what about our power? I'm like, what about it? What are we doing? So a lot of anything I've written in the book is where I've probably effed it up a couple of times. And then I'm like, all right, note to self, we are not making that mistake again. And then that ends up becoming a blog post. And then the blog post ended up becoming a book. But it's making sure that that if, especially when we're outdoors, that we got generators and we have not just those little what did you say?
That's a whole nother talk, generators.
Right. and that's when we've seen the most problems is with generators, even though the most recent one I was thinking of had no generators. But we did a wedding, 10-piece band, outside generators. Everybody was set. The lighting was set. Everything was fine. They failed to mention that there were 10 waffle irons coming in from the catering team to do your own waffle station at the end of the night. Blew the power. Come on, guys. Come on.
A lot of what people don't realize too is the power that the company you're getting the generator from. Generator says I have X amount of power. The power that actually comes to the end of that, after all of the extension cords have been plugged in, is not the same. It's much, much less.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you don't know that, then you're in trouble.
And that, I mean, extension cords are another thing in itself. Like I had someone ask us to put, what was it, like 6 extension cords together to go out to the middle of a field. And I'm like, you don't understand. It's not going to hold the sound system. Like, it's just a ceremony, but it's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, so I'll tell you one of the things, and I think I mentioned this with Alex last week. That's where that final walkthrough comes into play. Just bring everybody. It may take, the final walkthrough may take 20, 30 extra minutes. But if I have the caterer there, a representative from the music, a representative from decor or staging, everyone is there. That way, if we say something wonky, they can say, wait a second, hold on, that's going to affect me. Yeah. And then we can have that conversation, because I'd rather you raise your hand at the final walkthrough than on the day of the wedding when I'm running in 5 different places. We
actually prefer to be involved in those. We like, even someplace we've been a million times, we want to be a planner. We want to know everything else that's going on, just because it helps us all be more successful on the day of. Yep. And there's really no reason not to do it. Yep. I feel like some entertainment people don't always do that, but we love to be there.
Yeah. Is it found that there's a lot of pushback from the bands and things to actually show up?
Well, every wedding planner has stories about bands that we can all share. You start to find that you got that company that you're like, all right, they are going to work with me. I'm sticking with them. And so seriously, so because, I have run into some bands where I thought, oh, Jesus, they want to sit at the table in the middle of the reception and drink their beer.
Don't understand.
No.
We've run across that too, because we do book outside teams, we book partner bands. There's times where I've had a conversation and I'm like, this isn't a good fit for us.
Nope.
You do you, but this isn't how we work.
So can I segue for a second then? Because here's something I've learned. Because, when I first started, most of my clients booked a DJ. Then, you grow up a little bit and you start booking bands. And what I have found to be most helpful for meal times is if I feed the band before the reception starts. Do you guys agree?
So it's hard to say all the time, because it's also, if we have sound check right before the reception, then they're 4 o'clock. By the time we get to 10 or 11, they're dying. So there's always this thing. One thing we have found, though, when we're able to feed them, like say we're able to schedule a sound check while ceremony's happening, which is great, and then they can eat during cocktail hour. And then as long as the catering team is fine with leaving the food, especially if it's like a buffet, like the Four Seasons, I'll give them a plug here. They're always, and the Hay Adams actually, they're always so good about having food as soon as sound check is over and keeping it. So when they have a break, they can kind of snack and not feel like they had a full meal right before that. So no, yeah. I'm with you.
When we have the time in between, they do like to eat before, but if they it's too rushed and they're not able to enjoy it. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all about that, just because I found myself where they're eating for a long time during dinner. And
that either.
No, we don't allow that.
And the guests are ready to start dancing and the band's like, we got 15 more minutes. And so
one of the things we've tried to work on with that, because that actually is an issue, and what usually happens is the catering company or the catering team, and actually I'm not faulting them for this, they want to feed the guests first. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you actually have vendor meals and you can set them aside for the band first, then as soon as band gets off break, when you start serving, they can eat.
Yeah.
And because that's usually what happens is they've gone on break and they have no food. And so they sit and wait until all the guests are fed. Then they get their food, and then they have like 5 or 10 minutes until guests, but they've just been sitting there waiting, So
right.
Tricky thing. That's also part of why we like to be on site, because we'll check on meals and we won't be annoying, I promise. because we know everyone's a team player here, but we will check on it because we want to give the band the time.
We want to time it properly so that everybody's time is best spent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's again goes back to that walkthrough, because if the caterer is there and we're walking through, we can loop that in. So guys, can you feed them? Because I can say to the caterer, can you feed them at such and such time? Then the caterer's like, yeah. You know, sometimes it's just a matter of us communicating it so everybody hears and they're like, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is just for bands, because we've been in the position where we've either worked with or been privy to bands who are very demanding about meals. And I feel like catering teams and planners can almost be like, really? Yeah. Like now you're going to wait for your food. And not to be mean. I mean, I think people get annoyed. And I think if you're a team player and you're like, look, like our team brings snacks. They always know snacks.
I bring snacks.
Yeah. You brought us snacks. Actually, that was something we've never had a planner do. No. I'm like, and I apologize if I forgot something. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a whole table of snacks because, look, I can't have my people falling out now. So
no, fabulous. Yeah. And I don't even think we had meals that night.
No.
And you had candy and water, and the band was so happy. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, good. There we go. Hey, let's talk about positioning.
Yes.
Like when we're working on floor plans, you know, and it's funny because I'm working on a floor plan now for a wedding in next August. And the bride has these great ideas and she's like, why does a DJ have to be there? Why can't he be in the corner? And so I'm like, baby, don't you want him to see you when he comes in? Don't you want him to see our cues? We need the DJ a little closer. And but not everybody always understands that people are taking their cues from the guests, and there needs to be a line of sight. There needs to be good positioning. Can we talk about that? Even ceremony. Like when I see, sometimes I'm like, I can't hear them. Why are they all the way over there? So,
you know what's funny is I think that we get, especially with bands, because I think that to me is where we kind of, our mind goes to bands. When you walk in a room, everything kind of the focal point is built around a band a lot of times. And I have no problem with that because I think they do amazing things with backdrops and staging and decor, right? And then it's this beautiful presentation with the band. And with DJs, I feel like maybe it's a little different. We have had DJs in odd places. Like I can think of two offhand where one, we were just kind of to the side of the dance floor, but obviously we were working with a totally pro planner and she was like, I'm just repositioning it, but he's still in the mix and it worked really well. He wasn't the focal point, which is fine. But then we've had times where we're in a balcony with a DJ and the dancing underneath them. And that disconnect of energy, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's a connection of energy. And with a band, it's really hard if they're not, like we've had times where the band and the dance floor aren't next to each other. Like they put the dance floor, say you're in like a huge space, they put the dance floor way far away from the band just to move things around and break the space up, usually corporate events. Mm-hmm. But the band is way up against the wall in their focal point position. It creates this disconnect of communication and energy and being able to off each other.
The band has to work
really hard,
way harder because they've really got to get people to connect from a distance.
Yeah, there's a venue in Baltimore where the DJ's almost like in a tree house. He's up so high. I hate that. I'm like, I don't care how cool people think it is. I can't talk to him if he's all the way up there. So I can't give him a sense like, hey, we're going to slow it down for a minute or this or that. So not feel like I'm doing hand signals from downstairs and he can't hear me if I call him. So it's one of those wacky scenes where a venue thought it was a great idea, but the rest of us are like, this makes absolutely no sense. I need everybody down here. So when we also talk about positioning, do you have any opinions on how far back the stage should be from the dance floor?
I mean, we like them next to each other. Mm-hmm. Like if you, and I wish you could see the table. I can make hand gestures for you. But if you have the band and then the dance floor right in front. That's great. Obviously, in times of COVID, we're
6 feet away.
Yeah. We're asking for more of a barrier, and we're working with planners and even florists to create like a hedge or something. You know, we bought rope and stanchion for our team, so we can rope it off if we need to. But yeah, the closer the better. I mean, it just flows and makes sense, and it also changes the position of sound. You know, if your dance floor is way far away, your sound has to be by your band. You know, and then it changes the whole dynamics of where sound has to be and how much sound you have to have.
And musicians will also come out and interact, and that allows them to be closer and for them to come into the audience and engage with people more easily.
And then the wireless issues with all that, like I won't even go into it, but that adds to it, right?
Yeah. So do you have an opinion? Does the band need to be elevated or can they be on the floor?
I think it depends on the event. You know, if you're at Meridian House, I would never, ever put him on a stage, ever. Obviously, but you also, I mean, it's such an intimate space. You want to keep that intimacy. But if you're at, I'm trying to think of a space that doesn't already have a stage. Like I almost said Mellon Auditorium, but you have to be on the stage. But even like MGM or any of the ballrooms down in National Harbor, Gaylord, you know, they're big spaces. And so when you have a massive space, elevating the band helps you take up the space. It's just like a decorating concept, right? You go up.
And it helps your guest counts be able to see everyone,
Exactly.
you know, like as if you were at a concert. You know, there's a reason why people perform on stage.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to throw in a little plug. So if I'm looking at page 50 of my book, I outline different space requirements for like ceremony musicians, the soloist, the band, the DJ, and the dance floor. So if we were coming to the dance floor, you know, the most popular thing everybody's talking about now, those dance floor wraps. And don't get me wrong, I love a pretty dance floor wrap. What concerns me with dance floor wraps, if you got 100 guests, but your because you want this big dance floor wrap that makes a statement, it's a dance floor wrap for almost 300 guests. What do you know, I have my opinions about that, but I would love to hear your feedback about it when you let the style impact the experience.
So I think that we're all on the same page as you with dance floors. Is if you have a dance floor for 300 people, but you have 100 guests, your room's going to look empty. That's just how the room is going to feel empty. There's ways design-wise to create more depth, like if maybe you have a lounge area on your large dance floor, I don't know, that can help it up. But for us, you know, we want people to feel like their dance floor is always packed. So and I think you said it really well in your book. We have always thought, especially because we're mostly bands, we always kind of think 50%. But obviously, if you have DJs or maybe you don't have a big dancing crowd, you know, then plan on 30, maybe 40% of your guests on the dance floor, and that's how you should plan.
Yeah.
You know, but also knowing, say, you know, you're going to have 70% of the guests on the dance floor. I think the other thing people don't think about is there's times where it's going to be everybody, but then towards the end of the night, you're not going to have as many people there. And so consider those things. Does it bug you? Maybe it doesn't bug you, and then you're fine.
Get it, go. Put it somewhere else. I don't know.
But we do like the wraps.
They are
beautiful.
Cool.
They're beautiful. But keeping it appropriate to what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I love them. And if I can find a way to use them every time, I would. But here's the thing. And it's funny because I'll have parents say, Kawania, I don't think the dance floor is big enough. Number one, I'm like, you're right. There's probably not going to be any more than 30 to 40% of your guests on the floor at one time. And if you make it too big, then your guests are going to feel like they're on display and they won't come on the dance floor. So it's almost counterproductive. You make it too small, then you got butts bumping tables, you know.
Oh, I move tables. You know, we did one corporate event where they had, I want to say it was literally like 15 by 45. Imagine that dance floor. It was a runway.
I was about to say, that's a rectangle.
Trying to get it in front of the long stage because it was like 3,000 people. and it was a huge stage, and we weren't even taking up all the stage. It was a nightmare. I was like, who thought this was a good idea? I'm like, you guys do these events all the time. Like, this is not smart.
Where was their planner?
I mean, at that point, we try and give our piece and then you back off, right?
Yeah.
So, but they had to move tables.
Yeah.
They had to move tables out of the way because people were not going to the ends of the dance floor on their runway. You know, it was bizarre.
So, you know, it's one of my little favorite things I like to do for our receptions, unless the dance floor wrap dictates it, is we will set the dance floor on an angle. So the dance floor is a diamond as opposed to a square. And the reason we do that, then we can bring the tables in closer and it feels a little bit more intimate. And our guests, our couples love that, because then the sweetheart table, if there is a sweetheart table, doesn't feel like it's way over there. And the guests, because a goal for me, for every wedding, is that we're creating a wedding community. And so, you know, your coworkers are at that table all the way in the back in the corner. So you don't want them to feel so far away. And if you create a diamond, you can get the tables in a little bit closer. And then the dance floor won't feel as big. And it gives, even if the band wanted to come down in it, there's opportunities for them to do it that way.
Yeah. I don't know if I've done an event with a dance floor like that. That's a great idea.
We may notice.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, well, we do it a lot, and like I said, the only time we don't is if the dance floor is permanent and we can't move it, or if there's a wrap where the style will dictate it, and then we just let it go. Is there? I want to make sure I have one more. How about timing? When you're staffing, when you're trying to decide on a size band, are there any tips or recommendations you would give a planner or a couple about, hey, you know what, that band might be, you could probably, or you need a little bit more for this size group, or this is a great size band, but it might overwhelm the small group a little bit. Have you ever had those discussions?
Definitely talk about the space, the audience, and how many guests you have, because some people, music might be the most important thing on their list. They might want a huge band, even if they don't have a lot of people, and that's awesome. Yeah. Other people, they don't know. They want a great band in the space, and then we're able to recommend based on the room. We would suggest this size. It won't overpower what you have. Or even the actual, just the acoustics of the physical space itself don't lend itself to a large group or a small group. You need to find the right size to make sure that the sound is on point, that everything about the evening all flows and works well together.
Yeah. And in terms of acoustics of a band, I think what people don't think about it, well, how is your band miking themselves? Like, if you have floor monitors, if you're having ambient sound on stage, it changes than if you don't. But then also, what are the live instruments? Do you have horns? Horns are going to change the dynamics and the energy of your team. If you're at a huge space, adding horns actually helps you fill out the space and feel like you've taken up more of the room. It just helps change the dynamic and make everyone feel like there's stuff happening. It's not like, oh, why is that band so tiny, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
The opposite, even if you're in, back to Meridian, I love the space, and I think it's a great example for an intimate wedding. You can have a 7-piece band, you can actually do it right. But once you get into that 10-piece band, it doesn't feel comfortable.
It's a little tight.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the best experience because you're just, everything's so tight and loud.
Yeah, exactly. And be careful of sound. You can get in there, but do you want it?
Right, because it almost overwhelms it a little bit, and then it changes the vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one last thing I thought I'd mention, because since I've been fortunate enough to work with you ladies, and I was thinking of a wedding that I will probably start showing off a little bit in the next few weeks, where the couple wanted to have a band and a DJ experience, and we had to do a flip. And I didn't want the guests coming in, when are y'all going to be ready? When are y'all going to be ready? So we used a band for the dance party for cocktails. And what that did was get the couples and the guests not to focus on the flip. And I thought that was a great, and I've done it twice now, and I've done twice both at the Reagan building, because the flip is more than an ocean there. And I think that's one of those ideas I just throw out there for all these people who've graced us with their presence on here. But what we did is we had a great group. We had some of your musicians and a soloist during the ceremony. Then we had a dance party for cocktails. And so nobody noticed that the flip took an hour and almost an hour and a half, because it was.
We did.
What?
We had so much fun.
Yeah.
That cocktail hour, I mean, you had a stage, the guests were all in there having a great time. Everyone was interacting. It was so much fun to be able to do that for a cocktail hour, when a lot of times a cocktail hour is almost just like an afterthought, where it's just something people have to go sit at while they wait to get their dinner.
Yeah. No. And so and what that does is cut down on the ladies like, my feet hurt. When are y'all going to be finished? And then they had a DJ for their reception. So then it kept the energy up. Mm-hmm. Music was a great experience for that entire wedding day. And where we partner together and really solved many problems, because it is, we had a lot going on for that wedding, and it wasn't going to be a 60-minute flip. We knew that.
Well, and the thing is, after that wedding, because it was such a great idea, and we thought about that idea, but no one really takes us up on it. So for us to have you as their trusted planner bring it in, it was so perfect for that client. And even this, I guess, summer, another planner, there she is, Sarah, with SG3. She called me and she was like, I know this is crazy, but can we do a band for cocktails? And I'm like, well, yes, you can. But we learned from that first time. The way that we structured it for you, we actually had a singer and then the rhythm section. And we realized we really did need to have a second singer. Like, it was harder on the team. And what happened is my keyboardist, who's absolutely incredible, he figured out what was happening. He knew we needed extra vocals. He was trying to pull in songs that the singer was like, oh, I didn't know we were doing this. And the sound team got him a microphone and he sang. And he ended up, I don't even know if you knew that happened at your wedding. But I mean, they did it in a way that like nobody knew what was going on. And they were able to keep the energy going. And so when we did this wedding with Sarah, we were like, we got to have two singers and let's rearrange how we're going to do it. Because hers was just an hour, maybe even a little less. I can't remember now. Anyway, but it's just funny because now with COVID, everybody's trying to figure out how can we be flexible, maybe not have a full band. So we're playing with this idea of creating custom bands for whatever is going to be. It might be a 2-hour after party with a band because we might not have a lot of dancing, but we want the energy. And those experiences have helped us get really flexible, but do it right, so that you can keep the energy up, but not exhaust your team, and just make it really. So we love that idea. We think it's a great.
And it's funny because we came up with that idea out of necessity the first time we were at the Reagan building, and then I was like, I got to do this again. We're just going to up our game and do it even better the next time. So no, I love it. And I put it out there because I think other people should try it because it mixes it up. And, cocktails doesn't have to be talk time. People will talk plenty at dinner. And, let's come up with other ways to mix up your wedding day. Ladies, I'm going to ask you one last question. Well, let me ask you, is there anything exciting going on at Lucy Black that we should?
Well, there was. Had to cancel it. We're very sad about that, but we just couldn't get the whole team together. Not right now.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I mean, the way things are going right now, just all hunkering down and sheltering in place.
Yeah, so we're getting excited about, 2021 and what that looks like. And I think that, I mean, actually just getting creative with clients about how do you plan for a wedding when you have no idea what it's going to look like?
Yeah.
And just getting the team together that can say, okay, we're just going to all be flexible and this is our initial plan, but if it changes, we can change. We can
Yeah.
all figure it out. And I think it's not been, I wouldn't say fun, but it's been really getting our creative juices flowing and a fun challenge. I'll say it that way.
It keeps our iron sharpened.
Yeah.
We're nobody's suffering here from dull, you know, not keeping our brain fresh. That's for sure. So when all of this is over and the pandemic is done and we can get back outside, what's the first thing you're going to do?
So I'm going to go to all of the live music possible and travel a lot. And Rebecca had a really good one too. Hug all of our musicians.
That honestly, it has been so hard when we see them. Like some of them have hugged us, and we're like, okay. But like it's a thing. Like not being able to just hug our team.
They're like our family, and we're very friendly in that way. And so every time we see them, it's hi, how are you? And so it'll just be nice to finally really truly celebrate and be with everyone in that way.
And I think we really want to do shows. I mean, our team this summer, our sound engineer has like a stage in his backyard because that's how you roll when you're a sound engineer. And so we did a live concert outside, but of course we can't now. Andy had a baby, so it's like, but that's something I think that as things are picking back up, I really want to get our team together for live music, live shows.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I'm thinking I'm going to run up and down my block and hug anybody in my way. The human touch the lack of human touch is killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you tell everybody how they can find you on social media?
Yes, we're at Lucy Black ENT. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn, but kind of.
I understand.
blackentertainment.com.
Yep.
Our email is hello@lucyblackent.com as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I just want to remind everybody, all that we discussed about staff, I actually, and it hit me this morning, I have a book, and I should send it to you guys, that is specific towards music at your wedding. Did I send that to you already?
Oh.
No, I have a wedding planning guidebook on music.
I love it.
Yeah. But the one we've been talking about today, A Perfect Fit, and it deals with sizing, staging, staffing, rentals, and tenting, is available. And all of the books on my brand new The Enlightened Creative website are 10% off until the end of the year. You just have to use the promo code Smart Planner. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your knowledge and dropping all those good gems today, and your enthusiasm. I just love you guys. So, and I'm looking forward to working with you again in 2021. And yeah, we got some good stuff. Lord willing, if we can get these vaccines and everybody straightened out. But enjoy your holiday season, and thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks to everybody who stayed with us all the way to the end. Appreciate it.